So.
Could you talk a bit about Dickinson? I mean, I think one thing that is probably going to come up a lot in the series we're doing is Dickinson.
Yeah.
And just sort of talk about how you got to know him, what your what your reaction was to him, and what he meant in your career, and also just in your identity as a Memphis musician.
Well, I didn't know him long. I first met Jim through Ross Johnson, actually, who you should talk to for this, by the way. You should definitely talk to Ross. But Ross was doing some recording down at Jim's place in Coldwater, Mississippi, at the Zebra Ranch, is what he calls it. And Ross asked me to play guitar on it, so I went down there, and Jim was producing, and Jim was a really unorthodox had an unorthodox way of working. The studio there at the Zebra Ranch, not to get too technical, but it didn't have a control room. The console, the board, was in the same room with the band, so they would have to monitor what was going on. Jim and his engineer would have to monitor with headphones while you're playing. They're in the room with you. That's totally unorthodox, but I loved it. It was great, and the vibe of the place, it was like recording in a antique shop or a barn or something. It was really, really unusual, but a great vibe. So that was my first encounter with Jim, and we hit it off right away. I think I do recall that one of the songs Ross wanted to cut was "Crying in the Chapel," which was done by Elvis, but before that it was done by, I think, the Orioles, I think, and I had listened to both versions to prepare for the session, and their chords are slightly different in those versions, and I didn't know which version we were doing, and I happened to mention that in front of Jim, and that seemed to impress him that I had listened to both of them and knew the chords were different. I think he kind of, sort of cocked his head over, started paying a little bit more attention to me after that, but so we hit it off, and eventually he started playing with us. The same band that was down there was me, Greg Robertson from Raining Sound on drums, Adam Woodard from Jack Oblivion's band on organ, and I think Adam was there. Pretty sure Adam was there. But anyway, and Jeremy Scott, also from Raining Sound, on bass. And that was the band, and we eventually started backing up Jim on a side project called Snake Eyes, where we did a handful of gigs around Memphis, because Jim had written these songs back in the 60s, these sort of garage rock tunes that some of them got recorded, some of them didn't, and the whole concept of Snake Eyes was for us to play those songs. So it was like Jim doing like a psychedelic garage rock kind of thing, which was really fun and really cool. They were great tunes, and but sadly we didn't get to do it very long because his health started to fail. But we did a few gigs around town, and they were real special, and it was a real honor to get to do it. He was a really sweet guy, one of the best storytellers you'll ever encounter, and really, he was the ambassador for Memphis music. He knew more about it than anybody else. He could speak better about it than anybody else, and he was just a charming man. He just had a great spirit, and it was just, I'm really lucky to meet him. And it sticks with you. It sticks with you. Some of the things he would say would stick with you, and his spirit. He's the kind of guy you want to emulate. Because when somebody is that kind and that knowledgeable and that talented, you want to emulate that.
Was there anybody else of the sort of older generations of Memphis musicians who you found particularly supportive of, or you have found particularly supportive of what you've done? Is there anybody like that who has done that sort of stuff for you?
Well, generally, everyone in Memphis has been supportive of me, and that's one of the reasons I'm here. I've found that Memphis musicians are the most open-minded musicians I've ever encountered. There is no such thing as genre in Memphis. There's only two kinds of music here, good and bad, and everything else is irrelevant. So, uh, it does not matter what style you play. If it's good, people here will like it, and musicians will be open to it. And that is, I've never encountered that to that degree anywhere else. And but as far as older musicians, I mean, anytime I've encountered any of the old guard in Memphis, they've always been cool to me. I mean, we just started recording recently at Sam Phillips Studios with Roland James, and that's been a total honor to meet him. And he's just the sweetest guy, and at age 79, it still has ears of gold. I mean, nothing gets past him. No stray note. I mean, he hears like you wouldn't believe, and his arrangement ideas and his perspective on the songs is always spot on. I found that every time we tried his idea, it was always right. It was like if we were stuck on something, be like, well, what should we do? And Roland, who's very quiet, would chime in, why don't you try it this way? And every single time he was right. It solved whatever problem it was. So, and he's just a great guy. So that's just one example of the old guard guys. I knew B.B. Cunningham a little bit, who recently died, and B.B. was a total sweetheart. Just a great guy, hilarious sense of humor, and Roland too. Roland is hilarious. So it's just I don't mean to gush, but Memphis has been really, really great to me, and I really think highly of the current guys working here and the older guys for sure.